Hello and welcome everyone to the Living Healthier Day podcast. This is episode 158, and it is also the second in our 10-part series on cleansing and detox. My name is Carol Lee Cohen. I'm a certified nutritionist, sports nutritionist, health and wellness consultant, weight management consultant, and master nutritionist. And probably what has informed my experience and knowledge more is being the patient and consumer myself, trying to figure out what supplements to take, what cleanses, what detoxes to do for my own health, as well as helping to manufacture supplements and advise in formulation, and also trying to help people with their health. So when I look at detox and cleansing, I look at it from a place of personal experience, but also from working with a large number of people as well. And as we get started talking about products and conditions today, remember that the following information in this podcast is for educational purposes only, not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The statements presented here have not been evaluated by the FDA. The information is not a substitute for medical advice. Consult your medical professional for dealing with diseases or changing medications or anything like that. And at the same time, we highly encourage you to do your own research and use your own common sense and look at your own results. And as I already mentioned, this is part 2 of our 10-part detox and cleansing series. We've already done the intro, and I highly encourage you to go back and catch the intro if you haven't. You can either find that on Podbean, or you can also go to our YouTube channel. This is a playlist called 10-part detox and cleansing series on my YouTube channel. We'll provide the links at the end, and also all of the links will be linked in the show notes and resources or the description, depending which platform you're viewing this on. Okay, so in our last part, in our intro, we talked about how the order of digestion matters, how we have to start with the digestive tract because it's the lowest part of kind of our detox and cleansing mechanisms. It sits the lowest in the body. So we've got to unclog that bottom drain first. And today, our focus is going to be on doing just that. We're going to talk about how we can help to clean up the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine or the colon. And these are kind of the key areas to pull toxins out of, because if we can capture the toxins here, then they never get into the bloodstream or into the liver or really start overtaxing the kidney. So this is a great place to stop toxicity right here. And the main way that we take in toxicity is through things we eat and drink. Of course, there's other toxins we're going to pick up from things we touch or breathe in, right? There's other ways to get toxins, but the digestive tract is always going to be that main source of toxins. And the digestive tract is also where most of your immune system is located. And its job is to try and filter things out before they ever come in to the rest of the body. So it's a very hard working part of our body and a very important thing to look after and take care of first. So when we talk about detoxing the digestive tract, there are many ways that can help detox digestion. However, a lot of them are quite harsh and can cause you to have to stay by the restroom or do some pretty dramatic things. And if you're someone that has a condition like IBS or ulcerative colitis or leaky gut or autoimmune conditions, trying to flush a whole bunch of toxins through the system can trigger off huge herxing problems, and you feel exhausted and brain fog and just feeling awful. And this is why today I'm going to talk about my favorite way to cleanse the digestive tract that is gentle, is easy, and actually works really well for those of us who have these really bad digestive problems like Crohn's or celiac, ulcerative colitis, IBS, leaky gut, food allergies. We're just kind of sensitive to everything. This is one of the most natural, gentle ways to detox the digestive tract that exists. And we're talking today about calcium bentonite clay. So calcium bentonite clay is believed to have formed from ancient volcanoes. And clay in different forms exists all over the world. And one of the very interesting things that you'll notice about animals is they will go to water that appears dirty or not fresh, or even just eat mud around the water. And as that has been analyzed, there's a few things usually going on with that water and that mud, right? And it's usually a combination of there's either minerals in that spot or there's clay in that spot. And imagine if an animal gets some kind of virus or toxin or bacteria, right? They can't go take essential oils or antibiotics, but they instinctively know that if they eat clay, the clay will wrap up that toxin and get rid of it for them. So it's what they do. And they'll pick out the same thing with mineral rich water. They know that minerals will have an effect on detoxing the body too, and also nutritionally repairing it. And when we're trying to detox, we kind of want both. We want the minerals and we want the detox agents. So this is a very natural thing that's been used really since the beginning of time. And we're really only now learning exactly how it works and why it works so well. So here's how it works. So your toxins are harmful to the body and they have a positive electrical charge. So these toxins would include viruses, bacteria, heavy metals, pesticides, etc. And anything that is foreign, inorganic, not alive, like the things I just mentioned. When I say not alive, I mean not alive in the sense of it's not health promoting. It typically has a positive charge. Clay, on the other hand, has a very strong negative charge. And if you think about the way magnets work, the north and the south side, right, the positive or negative side, they attract each other. If they're both positive, they repel. If they're both negative, they repel. And so what this means is that clay is attracted right to those toxins. So when clay is attracted to a toxin, it surrounds it and creates a wall around it, basically engulfs it and kind of like eats it up, if you will. But because it's engulfed, it now has largely has that toxin neutralized or completely in some cases because it's surrounded. And now the body knows, okay, it's time to expel this. And this is where this toxin, now wrapped up with clay, gets eliminated by the body via the kidneys and bowels. So it's actually quite a simple process. And this is also why clay, for example, is never going to bind to an organic strawberry and try to detox it. Because if there's no chemicals on that strawberry, there's nothing to attract the clay. So what does calcium bentonite clay bind to? Well, bad bacteria. So this is going to include flu bugs, food poisoning, viruses, heavy metals, pesticides like Roundup. So if you've eaten something with any kind of chemical or herbicide on it, Roundup, this is a great thing to add to that meal. It helps with food poisoning. So Salmonella, E. coli, all of those nasty bugs. If you get bit, it helps to absorb venoms from bites or stings. Now, of course, you have to use some common sense here because some bites are going to require emergency medical care. But there are a lot of anecdotal stories of people using solely clay and being just fine. It absorbs environmental toxins in the bloodstream. So if your blood is dirty and you've got a bunch of toxins floating around, the way clay works is if you take it internally, it's going to cleanse the digestive tract and not leave the digestive tract. And that actually is a protective mechanism of nature so that we don't harm anything else in the body. We don't harm your blood cells. We don't harm your mineral levels. It's designed to stay in the digestive tract. But when we take a bath with it, the clay doesn't actually enter the body per se, but through that exact same thing that I showed you here on the previous slide of that positive and negative charge, the clay is actually going to attract the toxins out through the skin and into your water that you're taking a bath in, whether it's a full bath or a foot bath. So that can be a very good thing if you've been hit with an overwhelm of environmental toxins. And really anything that's creating inflammation or irritation in the digestive tract, clay is attracted to go calm down. So even if you ate a natural food, but you had some reaction to it and there's like inflammation happening and things of that nature, the clay will help go calm that down. I use this anytime I might have a bad reaction to a food just to stop all the stomach distress, and it works every time. So calcium bentonite clay is very, very gentle, even for the most sensitive of digestive tracts. And that's probably one of my favorite things, because again, if you take someone with leaky gut or IBS or a lot of inflammatory conditions or autoimmune things, and you try to put an herbal cleanse through them, a lot of times it will completely overwhelm the body. They'll have horrible herxing reactions. They might break out in hives everywhere and have to spend lots of time in the bathroom, all things we don't like. But clay gives us an opportunity to basically focus on the digestive tract and just do that. And it's gentle. It's very gentle. So If you are like sensitive to everything, clay is going to be your best friend. It doesn't trigger diarrhea or stomach aches. Clay is also far less prone to causing constipation or a Herx reaction than activated charcoal. There is a time and a place for activated charcoal, but again, if you are somebody with a very sensitive gut, I would strongly recommend you go with clay. Unless you're trying to stop runaway diarrhea, then sometimes activated charcoal can be a better choice. But clay is just more gentle. It won't push you so hard in one direction or the other. It lends itself to just promoting more balance and regularity to the body. It can be used to deal with toxins like food poisoning that are causing extreme diarrhea. And the thing I like here about clay is it'll actually go find the food poisoning bacteria, surround it, and stop that attack on the body, basically neutralize the poison. So in almost every case, clay is going to be my go-to as our number one way to detox the digestive tract. Okay, now let's talk about how we actually use clay, because we can use it internally, we can use it on the skin, we can use it in a bath, and we're going to talk about the products that we have available to us. So the first one is the Top Shelf Nutra Calcium Bentonite Clay Powder. And we can use this topically, internally, and on the skin. And then we also have a liquid version of the clay, which we'll talk a little bit later. Okay, so the next couple of slides, I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can use the clay. So the first one that's been used forever is as a detoxifying clay mask. So this can be used if you want to remove oils from your skin, if you've been in a toxic environment. This feels wonderful if you've got oily skin or acne that you're trying to deal with. You're just trying to get rid of some redness, any sort of skin blemishes. And it's also very helpful if you've used makeup and you want to take off kind of the residue. And it just leaves your pores feeling tightened, any sort of aging signs reduced, and it just feels really, really good. So this is a really time-honored thing to do. You can use it as a detoxifying and exfoliating foot treatment. So you can put it on the bottom of your feet like this and use it to simply pull toxins out that way. For those of you that know anything about acupressure, acupuncture, you understand that there's all the meridian lines and all the points that connect all the organs in the body on the bottom of the feet. And this is a great way to kind of gently signal better function and more detox of all those organs. I also like to do this if I'm having a lot of kidney issues and my kidneys are really hurting. Maybe they need a little help with detox. I'll do the same thing like you see on my feet, and I'll just put that across the kidney area, which of course is that low back area. So you can help pull toxins out that way. You can use it on the skin. So for insect and spider bites, bee stings, rashes, itchy skin, this is an amazing, amazing remedy. And how I like to use this if I'm dealing with a bee sting or a spider bite, I like to put down an essential oil first. So my favorites to put down are patchouli, because if it's something poisonous or venomous in any way, so like a bee sting or a spider bite particularly, patchouli will help to draw out some of the poison right off the top. And then if you put the clay on top of the patchouli, then you're going to get an even deeper drawing effect. There's going to be less swelling and you're going to have more healing. So that's just a pro tip to get the job done even faster. But if all I had was clay, I would absolutely use clay. I actually used this strategy a couple of years ago when I stepped on a honeybee and got stung. And I had very, very, very strong reaction. It was incredibly painful. There was tons of swelling. And I put down some patchouli first and then the clay on top of it. And it felt so much better right away and started healing from that moment on. The reaction was bad enough that I wasn't sure I wasn't going to end up having to go into ER. But as soon as I put the clay on, it was healing right away and things were calming down. And I've also had people in my family and friends of mine that did the same thing with spider bites and had no issues. But again, I'm going to encourage you, you can try these things at home, but just pay attention to what's going on and use your own common sense as far as how you're doing. Obviously, if you're dealing with anaphylaxis, that's a different story and you need to seek help. Putting something like this on rashes, poison ivy rashes, other types of rashes, very good idea to help draw those toxins out. So many ways to use it here topically. You can also use it as a detoxifying bath. So you can use this as a whole body bath or as just like a foot bath, because sometimes someone might not be mobile and they can't do a bath. They need to do something smaller or quicker. A foot bath is another great option. And I would recommend baths and foot baths if you're feeling sick, if you need some extra immune support, like maybe you've been battling a cold or a flu, if you've been exposed to toxins. You know how sometimes you just come home from the outside world and you just feel like, ugh, I just feel dirty. That's a great time to pull all those toxins out. I especially like to do this for children or adults that are dealing with the flu, where they just kind of feel horrible all over, and that bacteria or virus you have is making your muscles ache, and it's just kind of a sad story everywhere. All right, so how do we do all these things? So calcium bentonite clay powder, there's many types of clay, and I want to read you a quote, and this is actually off the label that is on our top shelf Nutra calcium bentonite clay. It says, among thousands of different clay types found in the world, calcium bentonite clay, which is a green clay, is the rarest form of clay. Used for centuries, pure calcium bentonite clay helps detoxify the body inside and out and return it to healthy balance. According to Raymond Dextret, Our Earth, Our Cure, it's a book he wrote, green clays are not only the most desirable, but the only type suggested for ingestion. Top Shelf Nutra Calcium Bentonite Clay is milled with a 325 mesh screen mesh and has a 30-to-1 detoxification ratio and is very alkaline with a pH of 9.0 to 9.7. Clay of this purity is uniquely rare, safe, and powerful. We're going to talk just a little bit more about what those manufacturing standards mean here shortly, because it's an important conversation. But before we do, I want to talk to you about how you use the clay in all these circumstances that I just mentioned. So if you want to take the clay powder and you want to use it for like topical or facial use, you're going to mix 1 part clay to 3 parts water. So it's just a matter of ratio. And if you mix it 1 part clay to 3 parts water, you're going to get a thinner paste that's like perfect for doing a facial detox mask. But if I wanted to do it for something like I had a bite or bee sting, or I really needed to pull some toxins out for some reason, I would actually mix it 1 part clay to 2 parts water. Obviously, it's going to be a little thicker, but that's going to allow me to apply it on more heavily and have longer drying power. Because as long as the clay is wet on your skin, it's drying. Once the clay is all dried out, that drying stops. So it just kind of depends on how hard of a pull I want of toxins, whether I mix it 1 part clay to 3 parts water or 1 part clay to 2 parts water. And the way I like to do this is I'll just take like a mason jar. You want to use glass or food safe plastic. And the reason for this is if you use metal, the clay actually interacts with metal and it can mess with the charge. So that's not a great idea. So I usually use a food safe plastic jar or even just a glass jar with a plastic lid. And I'll just decide, okay, how much clay do I want to have? And then how much of the water do I want to put in? So if I'm making it up to have it like on hand for bee stings, I usually do a cup of clay and 2 cups of water. And of course, that fits perfectly into a quart mason jar, and I'll just shake it up, let it sit, so it fully will hydrate, because it needs some time to hydrate once you mix it up. And then it's all ready to go. And I just leave it sitting in my cabinet. I know it's there anytime I need it. You always want to have it mixed up. You do not want to have to wait for it to properly hydrate and set up if you have an emergency. So I encourage you to always have this on hand. It keeps forever. You do not have to refrigerate it. Just keep it on hand. And you can do the same thing if you want to do a facial version of it. For that, I would probably do the 1 part clay to 3 parts water. And you might want to keep that like in a smaller container, maybe keep it in your bathroom so that you can do a clay face mask whenever you want to. If you're doing a bath, I usually use about a half cup of clay to a cup and just pour it in as the tub is filling, swirl it around, and that's really all there is to it. If I'm doing a foot bath, I usually do closer to that half cup. And you can do these baths as often as you feel like you need. Most people don't do them probably more than a couple of times a week, but if you're sick or really trying to get on top of something, you can even do them once or twice a day. So it really depends what you want to do. As far as how long to do your bath, most people recommend anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes. I usually stay in about that 30 to 45 minutes, whether I'm doing a foot bath or a bath, just because that's a good amount of time to draw out the maximum amount of toxins that can be pulled out in one sitting. You want to have the water temperature hot, as the heat actually helps to open up pores and draw toxins out. And you can also add to your clay baths other ingredients such as boron or baking soda. One of the favorite clay baths out there is put forth by Carrie Madej, and it includes all of those ingredients. And I'll go ahead and link the recipe for that bath in the show notes and resources and in the description for YouTube, so you can up level your detox bath and not just use the clay, but also add those other amazing time-honored detox ingredients as well. But that's how we use the clay topically, and if we're using it as a bath. Now I want to talk about taking the clay internally. So some of the benefits, again, for taking clay internally are going to be dealing with toxins from your food. Maybe it's not all organic. Maybe it has some pesticides, some food colorings. If I get an upset stomach, either from a bug or from something I ate, if I'm trying to get rid of something like a bacteria or a food poisoning, and just to pull the nails out, basically anything bad that's happening in the digestive tract. So I want to talk to you about something that we referenced briefly earlier when we talked about the clay's drying power, that having a 30-to-1 ability to detox. What that means is that the calcium bentonite clay powder can detox about 30 times its weight in toxins. That's what that 30-to-1 means. So clay is a powerful detoxifier. This means that it will draw up toxins in the soil or water around it. So if you just go pick up random clay in the soil, it may have been doing its job in detoxing that surrounding soil if it's toxic. So there could be heavy metals in there. There could be pesticides in there. All depends on where that clay is coming from. So for this reason, it is very important to be getting clay from a tested, toxin-free source that is free of heavy metals or other toxins like pesticides. We have the same issue with zeolite. You can get very clean zeolite or very polluted zeolite because it's busy detoxing. So the clay is the same idea. It's very important to know where your source of clay is coming from. So Top Shelf Nutra's Calcium Bentonite Clay is actually GRAS, or generally recognized as safe, certified by the FDA. And it's one of the only clays on the market that is. So when something is certified as GRAS, or generally recognized as safe, that essentially means there are almost no cautions with it. Like, it's safe for basically everything in every situation. I don't want to say completely, but it's generally recognized as safe. That is a very important designation, and that lets you know that it has gone through screening for pesticides and heavy metals. And I mention that since we're talking about ingesting clay, because the last thing you would want to do is ingest something to detoxify the body that was loaded with toxins. So this is where we have an option. We have a product called Clay, which is a liquid premixed clay, and has a very smooth taste. There's no leftover grit at the bottom of the glass. It actually has more drawing power than even just the powder does. The taste is extremely mild. This is perfect for people like me who are either lazy or really don't like the taste of clay at all. This taste is so mild that you can get anyone to use it. Now, you can buy it like this pre-mixed, but you can also make your own liquid clay out of the Top Shelf Nutra powder. And if you want to do that, you're going to mix 8 parts clay to 1 part water. So again, you're going to want to use a food-safe plastic jar or glass with a plastic lid, and you'll just simply do 8 parts clay to 1 part water. However much you want to make, you'll shake it up. Again, you'll need to let it sit and hydrate. And I like to store mine in the fridge just because I like it cold, but you don't have to. And I'm going to go ahead and link a video in the show notes and resources, and also in the description for YouTube, where you can actually watch somebody make liquid clay out of the powder. And if I were targeting digestion on a regular basis, like just trying to cleanse the digestive tract every day, I really feel like the liquid is probably the most effective way to take this, and the most everyday use of it, if you will. So I want to talk for just a minute now about how much clay to use. So whether you're using the pre-mixed liquid clay or you've made your own by mixing 8 parts clay to 1 part water, the recommendation for taking it internally that is set by the FDA is about a teaspoon a day. So that is the FDA's recommendation. When I am taking the clay, I tend to not measure it and just take a large swallow. And if I feel like I need more, I might have a second swallow. So I'm going to leave that up to your own interpretation, how much you feel like you should be taking. Again, remember the clay is certified as GRAS, generally recognized as safe, and there's really nothing bad that can happen from taking it. And so when I'm working with a product with that kind of safety profile, I like to just play around and see at what point, if I increase the dose, do I stop getting benefit? And then I go down until I stop losing benefit, and that's the dose I stay at. That's just what I do. You should do your own research and figure out what works best for you. Now, I always get the question of when to take the clay. And a lot of people will say, oh, you can't take it with food. That's actually not true. I would encourage you to take it with food, especially if you're eating something with toxins. Like, what if you end up eating out at a restaurant? There's going to be toxins, right? Great time to take it. Or if you've eaten and you've got something's upsetting your stomach, great time to take it. And you can also take it on an empty stomach if you prefer. Either way, remember that the clay is not going to go after living, helpful, organic substances that have a negative charge. It's going to go after any toxins that have that positive charge. And at any given time, in the world we live in, there's almost no chance of your gut being so clean that there's going to be nothing for it to find that you don't want to get rid of. So taking it with food, you do not have to worry about that at all. Now, clay, again, is a very powerful detoxifier. The one thing that you need to be very careful with it is taking it 2 hours before or after all medications. Clay can actually pretty much inactivate medications or make them less effective because it recognizes that as a toxin, something not natural to the body, and it tries to get rid of it. So you can take clay while you're on medications, but just be aware of when you're taking the medications in the clay. So if you're taking a medication that has to be taken with meals, then I suggest taking the clay mid-afternoon or mid-morning and mid-afternoon so that you're kind of halfway in between your meals there. That usually works really well. If your medications are AM, PM, like first thing you get up, last thing at night, then taking it with meals is usually safe. Maybe not breakfast, but taking it like with lunch and dinner. So there are ways to take it. And I know I've had to do this at times along my own health journey, and it hasn't been a problem. So just be aware of that. Like, especially if you're taking a medication that needs to really be available to your body, like a thyroid medication or a blood pressure medication, just don't take them at the same time. Okay, so that is, let me go back for just a second. That is the basic calcium bentonite clay, #1 detoxifier of the digestive tract. And just as a side note, one of the things that I found very interesting is when these products came out for the first time, I was actually very, very sensitive to our flagship product, so much so that I couldn't take it. And that was ginger, because I had a very, very, very toxic gut at the time. And as I started taking the clay, I became less and less sensitive to things. And after a while, I could actually take the ginger. And we see this even like with gluten sensitivities. Not that the gluten sensitivity goes away, but the clay can lessen the impact or the effect if you accidentally eat it, as happens sometimes, right? And it can really lower that sensitivity level. So for people that kind of react to everything, starting with the clay as a way to help detoxify the digestive tract is incredibly important. So that's kind of, I would say, step one. And we're going to talk about in future episodes, we're going to talk about how we can deal with constipation, moving things along faster, and also how we can maintain the digestive tract, some of the things we can do and take to rebuild it so that it is healthier on a general regular basis too. And I want to end today's episode by talking about a very special product that is coming very soon that will bring us a third option for clay. And that is the Daily Detox Tea. Now, this product actually has calcium bentonite clay in it as one of its ingredients, so it can provide some of that help for the digestive tract. It's a smaller amount than, of course, just doing the straight powder would be, but it also brings on hawthorn berry, dandelion root, milk thistle seed, some muscadine extract, some extra minerals, and even more. And what this product does is The clay helps with the digestive tract, but some of these other ingredients help to start working on the liver, the kidneys, and the blood. So this is a great all-around detox product that we're going to talk a lot about in upcoming episodes, because this is a must-have when we're trying to detoxify the kidney and liver. And with that, I think that brings us to the end of today. Our next section will be about how we deal with constipation, doing things like enemas. And then the next section will be, as I mentioned already, where we talk about maintaining that healthy digestive tract. And with that, that brings us to the end of today. You can see all of my social links here, my YouTube channel, the podcast site. And of course, if you're not part of our Top Shelf Nutra Telegram channel, make sure you go find us there, because we talk about updates, answer questions, lots going on in that channel all the time. And with that, I hope you learned something today and found this episode helpful. And feel free to drop any questions in the Telegram channel. Thank you so much for listening.